What's going on? Travis here, TravisStelzel.com, TrainAggressive.com, and I got an awesome aggressive strength talk here with my buddy Saul Orwell, who is the co-founder of Examine.com, and just to give you a little background on him in regards to how I met him, I believe it was about 2 years ago. I got an email from Saul, and at first I was like, what's this guy want? Like, he's going to try to get me to peddle some supplement, because he hit me up with, supplements. You need to check out this site. And I was waiting to get there, and I was expecting, just a bunch of supplement BS and, to try to get me to buy or sell something. But it actually turned out this site that he sent me to, Examine.com, is a badass site. And so got connected with Saul a little bit more. We've been, shooting emails back and forth over the years, and wanted to get you on the line to kind of dig into your brain a little bit more, because supplements are the big thing, and you've done a lot of research on this stuff, so we'll kind of dig into that. But Saul, thanks for being on the line. I know you are extremely busy this week. You have been all week, and thanks for being on the line, dude.
All my pleasure.
Cool. And Saul told me before this interview, if he happens to kind of act like a zombie or whatnot, he's been up for hours on end without any sleep. So just take that note. But
yeah, it's been a long week. I do remember when I emailed you, and it was one of those. It's really hard to. I really wanted to convey, hey, I read your stuff, and hey, I'm not here to spam you. But it's sometimes when you're really excited about what you've built, you really want to show it off to people you follow, people whose wisdom you've been reading. So. That's why I originally sent you the email. But, if your viewers are kind of curious about how we started, I'm an immigrant actually to Canada. I came in '97, and I've been building websites since pretty much I came over. And, when I went to university, I actually incorporated my company and all that. And pretty much soon after university, I retired. The rat race wasn't for me. My websites kind of ran themselves. Go for an hour-long walk with my dog. I was more for the relaxed travel life. And about 4 years ago, I kind of got into fitness, right? I was pretty unhealthy, pretty out of shape. Last two places I lived in was Argentina and Manhattan, and just the ice creams and the cookies and whatnot just completely left me destroyed. And so, as I went from fat to fit, I'm very analytical. I started writing down notes on how do the hormones work, what's the interactions of supplements and stuff like that. And I got really frustrated. I mean, the truth is there's, on forums and Reddit and all these other sites, there's a lot of idiots, but there's a lot of smart people out there too, right? Talking about this stuff, talking about that stuff. And that information gets lost, right? I mean, somebody writes some intelligent forum post, you read it, 2 weeks later, nobody remembers it even exists. And that's kind of the main reason why I started off Examine.com, was basically to act as a clearinghouse, as a reference place where you could look up information on. At that time, I was most interested in supplement and nutrition. You could just look it all up immediately. People could discuss. Every time a new study came out, people could post it, or there'd be a discussion, conversation, stuff like that. And there was a guy who I found his stuff really interesting. He was just graduating from dietetic school, and I said, hey, forget the RD. Like, let's make something. And so now we've been at it for 2.5 years, and I think we've carved out our own niche as like an evidence-based website on supplementation and nutrition. I mean, when we started, a couple months in, we were getting 50 visitors a day, and now we're at about 12,500 a day. So, we kind of have a responsibility now where a lot of people are looking towards us for information on supplements and nutrition, and we're trying to cut through that BS, right? There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of marketing, a lot of flashy ads, a lot of bullshit out there. And we're kind of like, some of it might be true, but all we're focused on is what evidence is there, right? Just because there's no evidence doesn't mean it's not true, but it says, if they're claiming this, like, scientific study showed this, is that actually true, or are they just looking at a rat study, or, are they kind of massaging the numbers? So basically, that's what we do. We've been at it for a while now. We have like 300 plus supplements covered, from some popular ones to some unpopular ones, and I think we're starting to achieve our goal of being the reference site for supplement and nutrition information.
And that's Examine.com, correct?
That's right. Just
Yep, yep.
examine.com, nothing Philly or
Yeah, and
anything else.
like I mentioned when you first reached out to me and you gave me that website, I went over there and I just, started checking out different things, and I was pretty much blown away. And the major difference with it is just most of the websites out there, when you type in a search, say the best protein powder or the best creatine, you're always, more times than not, you're going to end up on like bodybuilding.com, and it's usually going to be some company that actually wrote the article or did the study, and obviously it's biased towards that supplement, so it's hard to find actual real stone cold information on the supplements that you're trying to buy. So with your website, it's pretty kick ass. But what I
Well,
kind
I
of
mean,
wanted
that's
to know, what's that?
yeah. I was just saying. Well, the thing is, I mean, we're an independent site. Our major source of revenue so far had just been, if you were looking at creatine, we'd be like, if you want to buy it, you can buy it through us, kind of via Amazon. We never recommend any brands. We never recommend any products. Kind of like, here's Amazon search results for creatine, buy it if you want, which is kind of nice and kind of cool. But the reality is, then we don't make a lot of money out of it. Whereas, these companies that are selling like creatine nitrate and all these other, fancy kinds of creatine, which you don't really need. Monohydrate works just fine. They make a lot of money and they spend a lot of money on advertisements and stuff like that, which is why, I mean, we're slowly working our way up to the search engines as more and more people find us and take note of what we're doing. And we're hoping in the next few years, for creatine and stuff like that, we will be near the top. So, people start searching for that stuff, they get the truth immediately. But that's, it's one of those financial realities of capitalism, if you wish,
Yeah.
that they got the money and therefore they got the rankings.
Let me ask you this. I guess, have you got any feedback or, I guess, any backlash, I should say, from any companies yet out there peddling bullshit products?
Well, there has been back. No one. Here's the thing, right? If they want to get into a flame war with us, if they want to bash us, they have to do with evidence.
Yeah.
And they don't
You
have that
guys have
evidence
evidence.
to prove us wrong, right? So more often than not, what happens is once a week, someone will contact us, and once every couple of weeks, someone will try to straight up, say, hey, why don't you remove this study, and we'll pay $500, or when they're more indirect, they're like, yeah, why don't we pay, you remove this study, and we'll fly you to LA and we'll show you and have a good time, right? Like a not direct compensation.
Yeah.
And I was telling we've got a lot of fans,
Don't
and
sell
every
out.
single revision we do is public history. Like kind of like Wikipedia stores every revision, that's public history.
Yeah.
So if we remove a study, people will know. And
Yeah.
the moment they find out and know, they will bust our ass, and our reputation's down the tank. For
Yeah.
$500 for a trip to LA, kind of sounds nice, but
Yeah.
definitely not worth it.
Integrity, man, and don't sell out, man. Don't sell out because
Well,
I mean,
I was telling you, right? I mean, I was telling your audience, like, I kind of cheated, right? Like, I'm retired. I don't need to worry about, feeding myself the next day or rent and whatnot. So I'm in a lucky position where I can kind of do what I want. And at this time, bringing some truth and hard facts to fitness and nutrition, and it feels kind of nice, to be honest.
yeah. I guess with that, I guess what was your main mission? I guess what is your main mission with this site? What are you trying to do with it?
Well, if I segue a little bit, right? I mean, we mostly talk about supplements in terms of athletic performance, right? It's like, what's going to make me run faster? What's going to let me work out longer? And the reality is, most of them don't really work, right? Creatine works, caffeine works, but you become, you have to be naive to it for it to work. Beta-alanine kind of works. NO booster like agmatine or citrulline, it kind of works. Beetroots kind of work. But at the end of the day, when it comes to fitness, unless you're taking PEDs, and which are injection based and all that kind of stuff, they're not going to do much. But where supplementation is kind of really cool is in the other areas of your health and kind of your lifestyle, right?
Yep.
So a few of my favorite examples. My favorite one is berberine. It's great for controlling your blood sugar.
Yeah.
So I might not have to worry about that, but if you're diabetic, I mean, all my diabetic friends love berberine. My good buddy, Dr. Nadolsky, he deals with diabetics. He always prescribes berberine to them. And berberine, it's just some herb or whatever. It's as powerful as metmorphin, which is the number 1 prescription drug for diabetes, right? And then you get into stuff like spirulina, which is kind of popular with hippies, but it's actually really good if you're middle-aged. I make my mom take it. You get into if you want to get into even kind of out of this area, but I was just looking at like if you look at womenly issues, black cohosh is sold for menopause, even though it's completely useless. Where something like Vitis angus castus is amazing for it. So what my goal is kind of say, hey, you know, here's information, here's the truth on supplements, here's what we found. But hey, you know, health is contextual, right? A diabetic versus an obese person versus I have something called Ehlers-Danlos, so my ligaments are really loose, so I've blown out both of my ACLs, right? So I got to be a little bit more careful about my joints and stuff like that, right? We all have contact. And so we have like 185 health goals, which is saying, you know, look at what's important to you and find out what supplements could help you and, you know, what you got to be careful with.
Sure.
You know, to you and I, blood pressure might be an obvious one with caffeine. You know, if you have high blood pressure, take caffeine, it's going to make it worse. But not everybody knows that, right? So you kind of this knowing what can help you and what cannot help you in your specific health. I mean, that's what our ideal goal is. And, you know, like I said, we're getting to over 10,000 people today. I would love to get to 50,000 people today, kind of be able to influence in a positive way without, you know, trying to make a quick buck and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's a bit naive and it can be considered lame too, but I'm hoping that we can make at least a modicum of difference in people's lives.
Yeah, and I totally respect what you guys have put together and, you know, the amount of effort that you've put into it as well. I mean, because I'm not a huge research guy. I'm not the type of guy that I don't want to sit down and read and research, and I'll leave that stuff to you guys. So, but since we're here now, and you kind of already mentioned a few of the supplements, but I get questions daily, weekly, pretty much on the same stuff all the time. So I just want to kind of skim the surface with these because I know on your site and within your new book, which we'll talk about here in a second, you go further into detail with this stuff. So let's cut through all the bullshit, so to speak, and because I know people want to know, like, what works, what doesn't work, what should we be spending our money on, and I guess what should you be avoiding because it really doesn't do any good. So main focus for most people that follow me, athletic performance, like you talked about. So building muscle, getting lean, you know, improving performance overall. So I guess we can kind of go over like the main ones. I guess the first one is like protein powder. So I guess what's the lowdown on protein powder, man?
Okay, the lowdown on protein. And we have a big 4-part series just being about to be published on Schwarzenegger's website. But the quick gist of protein is protein's good for you. People, you know, that stuff about kidney stones and all that, that's essentially if you already have pre-existing conditions, right? I mean, you're not going to say tomatoes are bad for you because some people are allergic to it, right? It is what it is. So protein's awesome for you. A good target is about 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I'm a short dude. I'm 70 kilos. So, you know, I aim for like 125. I hit 150, that's great. You know, around that number. Even more protein could be good for you, but we don't know. There's no evidence either which way. Protein's really filling and all that. So protein's awesome. Get your protein. Now, in terms of sources, you know, that stuff about whey being a faster one and casein being slower, to be honest, unless you're a Mr. Olympia athlete or unless you are at the peak of athletic performance, you're literally majoring in the minors kind of thing, right? I mean, that absorption may be 1% faster, but when you are not, you know, at least deadlifting 600 plus and stuff like that, that's not a big worry, right? Have protein in your system. You don't need protein right after you work out or right before you work out. Slight exception if you're fasted training, but in general, over the course of a day, get protein in your body, right? It doesn't fly through your system. It stays in your intestines, stays in your gut, all that kind of stuff. So casein, you know, whey, whatever you prefer. The one thing I do want to make mention of is soy. A lot of people are petrified of soy. The reality is soy isolate has slight phytoestrogenic components, which is a fancy way of saying if you have no estrogen in your body, they may affect you. Right? Soy concentrate is fine. But here's the thing. If having a little bit of soy protein is going to decrease your testosterone that much, the problem is not the soy. The problem is your diet. The problem is you need to get some sleep. You need to lift some heavy weights. It's not the soy that's causing the problem. What else is there about protein that also BCAAs, leucine, HMB, To be honest, BCAAs are pretty much plentiful in protein powders and in meat. Unless you're high in rice and pea protein, which I don't think your audience is, you don't really need to worry about BCAAs. Leucine, which is considered to be the muscle building amino acid of BCAAs.
Super
Again,
anabolic, right?
yeah, super anabolic. Again, unless you are at that elite level where, fitness is your job and, you're a figure athlete or you're a professional athlete and all that, again, you are worrying way too much. And I'd also like to add, like, leucine tastes like ass. I don't know if you've ever had it. It's disgusting.
Terrible.
So there's
like
no
flaky.
reason.
It's like flaky dust,
That doesn't leave the taste doesn't leave your mouth, and even if you shake it, anyway, it's just why would you subject yourself to self torture if you don't need it? And so that's kind of our viewpoint. You eat cottage cheese, you eat chicken, you eat meat, you eat whatever, even vegetarians, whatever, right? Get your protein, 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight, and you're good. That's pretty much all you need to worry about for protein.
Good stuff. And so I was going to ask you about like the BCAAs and the leucine and the glutamine. So you mentioned those. What's the lowdown on that? You don't really need it if you're getting enough protein, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you mentioned glutamine. I forgot. Glutamine is pretty much one of the most popular supplements sold.
Yeah.
Last I read, it's $600 million industry per year. Okay, glutamine is pretty much useless for consumption. Here's the thing. So, when they do studies, they do animal studies, they do in vitro, which means cell studies, petri dish, test tube, stuff like that, and then they do in vivo, which is, our entire body. So in petri dishes, what they did was they injected glutamine straight into muscle tissue, and the more glutamine you put in, the more the muscles grew, right? So you think, shit, I gotta get more glutamine. But in the real world, in our bodies, our intestines hoard all the glutamine. So all that glutamine you're taking, all of it, it's just sticking around in your intestines. It's literally going nowhere. The only way glutamine will go anywhere is if you're deficient. And again, if you're eating even like 0.6 grams of per kilogram of protein, you are not deficient. Or if you have severe burns. We're talking about it's used in hospitals for people who have burns because then glutamine deficiency is huge. So glutamine is great for your digestive system. Yeah. It's really healthy for your gut. But for muscle building, glutamine, BCAAs, isoleucine, none of it matters. Yeah. I mean, if you feel like it's better for you, this is where, we back off. Evidence is evidence, but if it works for you anecdotally, awesome. But in a scientific way, in terms of testing, there's been a lot of testing on it. It's not like it's one or two studies. Yeah. Those things are pretty much a waste of your money.
Yeah. You mentioned glutamine is good for intestinal health, and so for people who've been eating, really, really bad, who have bad digestion health, I would recommend taking glutamine as it will help. But I mean, in regards to building more muscle and just getting better results, it comes down to your digestive system. So if you have a crappy digestive system, it really doesn't matter what you're going to be eating because you're not going to be absorbing a lot of the food and the nutrients and stuff like that. So anything that will help improve your digestive health will, it'll have, effects on other things that you do too. So
yeah, I mean, it's like the soy example, right? If you need glutamine or BCAAs, it's not that, it's your diet. Yeah. I mean, this is the same people who will chug glutamine for muscle building and then go out and get drunk every night or get 5 hours of sleep. Yep. Honestly, if there's nothing, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this, but sleep is pretty much the most anabolic thing. We wrote a really nice long article on Eric Cressy's website, and it's just sleep covers everything, like libido, everything, right? So yeah, get that right, and then you can maybe start thinking about glutamine and everything else.
It's funny. That's like the last area people look is like with their sleep. And it's
absolutely.
Like, it's right there under your nose.
Sleep.
But, all right, so we've mentioned glutamine, protein powders. Now, creatine, that's one of the good ones, right?
Yeah, we're actually a huge fan of creatine. I even make my mom take it. I mean, in a most simplistic way, creatine is extra energy for your cell. It's a lot more readily available than glucose or whatnot. And so that extra energy in terms of lifting weights, it lets you push out a couple extra reps. And because you could do a little bit extra reps, you're stimulating your muscle fibers more, therefore you should have more muscle.
Right.
Even external to that, because again, it's more energy for your cells. I mean, your cells are dying all the time and all that, right? If you can stave off them from getting, degenerative, from, collapsing or dying, it has other benefits. So it can help with cognitive decline. I mean, actual creatine deficiency is a genetic condition and it causes mental retardation. So creatine is pretty damn useful. And the other thing is, they've been like 20, 30 studies done on creatine for kidney and liver and this and this. Other than getting some cramping in your stomach when people just take just creatine powder and don't drink enough water, I mean, it's about as safe as you can pretty much get with any supplement. There's always a chance, you're walking outside, you're going to get hit with a car and all that. There's always a chance something can go wrong, but creatine is pretty much as safe and as proven as any supplement can ever get.
Definitely. Good stuff, man. So, good. We covered that. Other questions I get a lot. Testosterone boosters. The natural testosterone boosters. How well do these actually work?
Pretty much not at all. Here's the reality, all right? When our testosterone feels jacked after workout and whatever, you're feeling the pump and all that, and you're feeling really good, you'll feel hornier at the same time, right? Your libido is up. And the reality is that almost all these testosterone boosters, what they are is they're libido boosters. And because your libido is feeling so strong, you feel as if your testosterone has increased, but it hasn't. I mean, I would love it if it did, but it hasn't. And then there's two other caveats I would like to add. So the current crop of testosterone boosters are useless, but there's a lot of promising research with animal studies. We have no clue if they'll work or not. I mean, oftentimes animal studies completely fail when you take them to humans, right? I mean, they thought leptin was going to solve obesity. It turns out, humans become leptin resistant. So take that with an extremely large grain of salt, but in the next 5 years, we'll know if those animal studies apply to us or not. The other thing is, we all have a baseline of testosterone, our average testosterone. And if you are deficient in sleep, if you're deficient in vitamin D, if you're deficient in zinc, even in magnesium at times, your testosterone will fall below your average, right? So a lot of these testosterone boosters, they have zinc in them. They even some of them now put in vitamin D. So just getting those takes you back to your average, which, yeah, technically is increasing your testosterone, but practically speaking, it's just, again, fixing up your crap diet, your crap sleep. And so, yeah.
It's a Band-Aid. It's nothing more than a Band-Aid, and you mentioned that again, is like, get outside more. Get outside more. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, sun's out, guns out, right? I mean, that's why we got them. Expose your arms, get some sunlight on your skin, you'll get your vitamin D, and you'll be good.
And get more sleep, and drink more water.
Sleep is awesome.
All right, so we're getting almost to 30 minutes here, so I don't want to keep you on too much longer, but another question I get a lot, I should say, is on fish oil, and there was a recent study that just came out this week, actually. So let's just kind of skim into that real quick and talk about that.
All right, so fish oils are sources of a kind of fat called omega-3s, and your body needs omega-3s and omega-6s. And you usually get a lot of omega-6 through meat, but since we don't eat a lot of fish, we don't get a lot of omega-3s, right? So fish oil is good. I mean, there's a lot of things. Hell, you can even, unless you have major depression, you can even alleviate depression. So it's pretty awesome. If you don't eat fatty fish, I would suggest you take fish oil. I love my smoked salmon, so I have it a few times a week, so I'm okay. Right? You don't need as much as they claim. And another thing, though, is if you do buy fish oil, I mean, these companies will sell you 2 grams of fish oil, but all that matters is the EPA and DHA, which is the important part. So they'll have like a gram of filler and only a gram of what you need, so look at that label. In terms of the prostate and the fish oil thing, I don't want to get too nerdy, but basically it was kind of an analysis of people after everything had happened. They weren't testing it. They were trying to do an analysis after the fact kind of thing. And they show that people who have very aggressive prostate cancer had higher levels of omega-3s, right? So we don't know if the people who had and they didn't check this, right? That's the problem. We don't know if these people were just supplementing with fish oil anyway, because it's often recommended if you have prostate cancer. We don't know if it's a bodily response to try to circulate more, because omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. We don't know if your body's circulating them around. There's some connection, but there's no causative connection. We can't say fish oil or omega-3s are causing prostate cancer, they're making it worse. The other thing is also right. I mean, prostate cancer is kind of like breast cancer for guys. I mean, you get older, the chance of prostate cancer gets really, really, really high, right? So at this time, we don't really know is the correct answer. I mean, the problem with this research is it's for other researchers. It's not for the media. It's not for the layperson. But you know, they're driven by sensationalism. They want to get their page views and all that kind of stuff, so they blow everything out of proportion. So don't worry about that study. I mean, keep an eye on what happens in the next few years, but right now you don't really need to concern yourself with it.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting that came out, and I just wanted to get your feedback on it. But yeah, so I mean, those are the main questions I get from people, and you know, those are the most common supplements that people are looking into buy, and you know, obviously
Let me jump in. Just before we move on, one thing I do want to talk about is, maybe supplements you should take.
Yep.
And I quickly hit this, vitamin D, I would recommend you take it just because you need sun exposure, right? Walking around with just your face out in the sun is not enough.
Yep.
Pollution's making it a lot harder for your body to create it, let's say synthesize it in your body. Vitamin D is a key one. Vitamin K is actually a really critical one too. We talk about it on our website. Basically, it's almost impossible to get via your diet just because of what's happened with agriculture and all that kind of stuff. I take both of these, so I'm recommending them when I take them myself. And the other one is magnesium and zinc if you sweat. It's pretty hard to get magnesium in your diet. You can, but again, it's not easy. I take a ZMA at night, or 2 or 3 pills. And it's quite telling that all 4 of these are really, really cheap. These are not money makers. There are no brands of vitamin D, no versions of vitamin D or magnesium, there are, but in general, there's not, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K. Yeah. That should pretty much cover most of your bases of your diet that you can't help anyway.
Yeah, and that's good. That's good stuff. And looking back to what we mentioned, one of the most important, or the most important thing, I should say, is sleep. And something that, because I've been taking a ZMA supplement for the last couple months now, and I'll tell you this, like just taking that, you get a deeper sleep. I don't know if you've experienced this, but your dreams are like clearer. Yeah. Like you can actually remember your dreams a little bit better, and man, you get such a better sleep when you
a lot of people report some crazy stuff. I'm glad actually you mentioned sleep too. Another thing about sleep is, quality of sleep is important. You can't have stimulation. You can't have a TV on. You can't have a radio playing music. You can't have light coming in. Get darkness, get quiet. Ocean waves and that kind of stuff, if that's soothing music or sounds put you to sleep, awesome. But don't please, your brain needs to relax, right? I mean, think about it. If somebody knocks on the door, you're going to wake up, and your brain is always awake listening, right? So there's all this stimulation, even the TV static coming in. Your brain is slightly more awake, listening to all the stimulation, and it cannot get as deep of a sleep as you need. So, treat your sleep seriously. I mean, I know people treat their workouts seriously. They plan it out months in advance. They know what reps they're going to hit, what RM, what RPE, all that kind of stuff, right? Treat your sleep seriously. It's pretty much the most critical thing you could do.
Yeah, it's so important. And again, like I mentioned earlier, that's one of the last areas people even think about, improving upon. They always think don't be so fast to go out and buy some magic product that's out there, Start with sleeping more. Shut the freaking TV off, turn off the PS3, and all that stuff, So I know how it is, man. As I'm aging, sleep is becoming that much more important. So
exactly,
I feel it. I feel it the next day when I don't get enough sleep. So it's crazy, man. But so we covered a ton of good information. I know that'll clear some things up with people. But before we cut out, why don't we talk about what you just released? Because you sent me this a couple weeks ago, and for people that want to know the truth, want to know the deep down insider information about this stuff, you've put it all together. How many pages is this thing?
So we basically put out a reference on supplementation and their health goals, and then vice versa, health goals and supplementation. Yeah. So it clocks in at 850 pages, which sounds big, but it's a reference, right? And so the two examples, easy ones, you look at vitamin D and you'll instantly see what it does and what it doesn't do, right? So vitamin D is actually proven to help decrease falls because the sunlight, the bone, all that kind of stuff plays in, right? Just help with bone health, stuff like that. And so we cover testosterone, vitamin D, right? We say it as a minor effect, and we explain in the comments it's a minor effect because if you're deficient, it will bring you back to baseline, which is where you want to be. And then the other thing is kind of what I mentioned right at the beginning, where, admittedly supplements for athletics are not the greatest thing, but health is extremely contextual. It's extremely personal and private. And, you look up what your health goals are, and it's like 185 from anxiety to sleep quality, stress, memory, blood glucose, blood pressure, all that kind of stuff, right? You look up the supplements that will work for you and the ones that won't work for you. And a little bit of a pitch in this way is that, we've been around for 2.5 years. We're pretty well established now, and we've kind of carved out our own niche. If you go to our testimonials page, you'll find MDs, PhDs, trainers, nutritionists, teachers, pretty much anybody who's in any form of fitness and health, powerlifters. We've got, Gregory Knuckles, who has the raw record at 240 and 220, right? And I think like 780 or whatever raw, right? Yeah. And tested, sorry. We pretty much across the entire spectrum. So, we've been pretty particular about staying independent. We've never sold anything before. We've never pitched anyone else's product, stuff like that. We're not a marketing company. So, that's it's what we do, and we feel like it'll help people. So we released it on Tuesday. Already 2,500 copies have been sold. There's a bit of a storm on Twitter and Facebook. There's been a lot of love. It's actually been really cool and humbling. I'll admit there's a little bit of a swagger in my step and whatnot. It's been really awesome. But, it's a real responsibility, and we think and we hope that, it'll save you money. It'll let you know what supplements are just not worth the time, especially because, again, depending on who you are. So that's kind of my quick spiel about what we've released.
Cool, and I'll put up a link below. What's that guide called again? It's the
Supplement Goals Reference Guide. Yep. So supplements towards your health goals, and then the vice versa, health goals towards your supplements.
Yeah, and what I thought was so cool in there is if you're wanting to improve performance, and it has like a certain reference in there. If you're wanting to build muscle specifically, it's all laid out in there, and you cut straight through the BS, so which is cool.
And the last two things is, it's all transparent. We link to all of our studies. We're not like those people who just put 20, citations at the end. We say these studies are for this and for this and for this. Yeah. And I totally forgot the second thing. So
it's all right, man. You've been up for what, 72 hours now?
It's a blur. It's a blur. I actually had my girlfriend actually massaged me so I could massage me to sleep so I could get at least some shut eye. So yeah, it's been hectic.
Well, cool, man. Well, I got to thank you again for taking the time. Like I said, I know you're freaking busy. This has probably been one of the busiest weeks of your life, and so I appreciate you taking the time and dropping some knowledge bombs. And like I said, I will link up a link to your stuff there, and so people can find out more information. But I think the bottom line is, and we mentioned this stuff, is before you go out and look for a magic pill or the silver bullet, look at your freaking diet. Look how much sleep you're getting. That's the first question I always ask people that ask me about supplements, what supplements to take. And you got to look at that. How are you eating? Because if you're not eating, whatever you think clean is about, 90-10. Yeah. So if you're not eating that well, that's the first place you want to start. Start cutting out the processed sugars and the processed carbs and all that crap, and start eating real food. Then that's what supplements are for, is to help enhance your already good diet, right? So
I agree, right? Supplements, the word is literally just defined right there. Right? You get your diet, you sleep, you get your training in shape, and then take supplements to fix the other parts of your life, but don't rely on them. This is what we do, right? We research into it, but I gotta be honest, right? You can't rely on that stuff. It's to help you out once you have the basic blocks in place. But yeah, thanks a lot. I hope your audience learns something, one or two things. If there's any questions, they can tweet at me or message me, or they can let you know and you'll let me know. And, I hate it when authors or people do interviews and then they never come back to answer any questions or, clarifications that people have. But, I will be around. So if you have any questions, let the man know and I will get back to you.
Definitely. And I was just chuckling a little bit there because whenever I'll get in like wars with people, they'll ask me for questions like, "What's the best protein? Should I be taking this and that?" And if I get in a battle, I've sent people over to your site, so it's just like, "Oh, okay, well, go check it out on examine.com, please."
Evidence is what it is.
I never hear back from them, so
Awesome.
but it's cool.
I'm gonna say they got lost on our site. Good for us.
Yeah. But thanks again, man. Appreciate it, and I'll be in touch, brother. Sounds like you guys are doing some more big stuff over there, so stay tuned, check it out, and for everybody in watching, thanks. Hope this helps you out a lot, pushes you towards your goals, closer to your goals. Just make sure you keep living aggressive, getting strong. We're out.
What the man said.